Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Viviana, and thank you everybody for joining us today. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are in the world of time zones. Extremely excited about today's session. Before I move forward and introduce Lucia, wanted to make sure that everybody knows that our upcoming HITEC Summer Leadership Summit is going to be coming up and taking place virtually August 11th through the 13th. And so if you haven't registered yet for that event, I want to encourage everybody to do so. If you don't know how you can register, please reach out to us and we'd be more than happy to help you. We have an incredible agenda, an incredible program planned out for all of you. And in the absence of being able to get together physically, we are really looking forward to be able to come together virtually for this, what will be HITEC's first ever all virtual summit, August 11th through the 13th. But today we are incredibly excited and happy to welcome one of our HITEC board members for today's HITEC live session. Lucia Suarez is the Managing Director and Portfolio Chief Information Officer Americas at the Carlyle Group. She provides information technology advisory to Carlyle investment teams and optimizes portfolio company performance by partnering with chief executive officers around information technology transformation opportunities and risks facing their businesses. She's based in Menlo Park, California. Previously, Lucia was managing director at Health 2047, leading venture formations that address U.S. healthcare challenges. She spent 15 years at Johnson & Johnson, serving a variety of executive roles as chief information officer and board member of multiple high-growth medical device businesses. She created technology strategies to grow and optimize businesses with the use of technology. She's also pioneered the start of Johnson & Johnson's enterprise health tech strategy organization, introducing revenue generating opportunities in key market strongholds, leading digital product design teams and launching technology partnerships. She is clearly an incredible leader within the HITEC community. She's part of our board of directors, and we are incredibly privileged and honored to welcome her today to lead this session. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lucia, and thank you for helping us lead today's session. Lucia.
Great, thank you so much, Omar, for the introduction. I'm so happy to be here with a familia today to talk about a topic that I think is relevant to everyone. And Viv and I were just talking beforehand. She said, isn't it great to just take a little bit of time and focus on a topic that has insights to each of us. So today I'll be talking to you about the confidence code. And the question I'm posing is, why does confidence matter? About 4 years ago, I read this great book called The Confidence Code, written by Katty and Claire Shipman. And I definitely recommend you reading it. Today, I'm going to talk about the book, and I'll definitely talk about concepts there, but I'm going to weave a little bit of my own experience and the learnings that I've had in my career. So I hope you enjoy it. So moving on to a personal story that I want to start off with. Back when I was 38 years old and I had 2 little daughters and a wonderful husband with his own career, I was working really hard and being given additional responsibilities when I was asked to interview for a CIO position. And after going through kind of a rigorous and nerve-wracking process, I got the phone call, and the phone call said, "You have been promoted to CIO." And I was so happy and exhilarated. It was sort of this goal I had had for myself, and there was a huge opportunity ahead of me. I was very excited. And then I hung up the phone, and in 5 seconds, I asked myself, do I have what it takes to be successful? And I just felt my heart sink for a moment. If you heard Yamila Harris's webinar on the imposter syndrome, which was wonderful, by the way, you're probably thinking, aha, she had the imposter syndrome, or she has the imposter syndrome. And you're probably right. I mean, I think that definitely some of that was going on. But I was kind of at a moment where I wanted to do my best, and I wasn't quite sure what to do, how to do it, who to be. I felt like I had to change myself as I grew in my career. And so I did what I do well, which is I went to my network of people and I asked for advice. Like, if you were in my shoes, how would you be approaching this opportunity? And one of the pieces of advice that I got, which was the best piece of advice at the moment that I really needed to hear, was from my human resources partner. And she basically said, Lucia, just be yourself. Have enough confidence to be yourself. So really my question changed to not will I be successful, but do I have the confidence to be successful? And I will tell you that this word confidence, it didn't come naturally to me, right? Hard work, rolling up my sleeves, having integrity, facing the challenges with courage, that came naturally to me. The word confidence was a word that I had kind of in the back of my mind, which is like, in my mind, confidence was the bravado that a lot of my colleagues had. You know, maybe they went to better schools than I did. Maybe they had a better resume, or they had a deeper voice when they walked into the room. They're tall, they command respect, you know. That's kind of what I had in my head of what confidence was, and I didn't see myself that way. I saw myself the way that I had been brought up, which is you work hard and you have humility and you achieve the milestones. But you know, the truth is that my way of thinking about confidence was not serving me well in that moment, because in reality, confidence can be misinterpreted many times. Some people think confidence is arrogance. Some people think confidence is something that you fake. You know, you don't feel confident, but as long as you dress a certain way, or you act a certain way, or you have quote unquote leadership presence, then you'll be successful. Well, today, I'm here to tell you that that type of thinking isn't going to help you become a successful leader, because what underpins the success in leadership beyond various attributes is confidence. Many studies have shown that confidence is that element that you can't quite put your finger on that people have and that makes them very successful. So I want to dig into that a little bit today. And I want to start off with, let's talk about successful leaders. And this is my own thinking, my own points. It's not exactly from the book. But in my own experience, I've thought about successful leaders having 5 C's. The first C that I see that they have is character. So it doesn't matter if you're an analyst at a company, if you're a CEO, or if you're a stay-at-home mom, all of these kinds of attributes to be the best version of yourself or to be successful are important. The character piece is where you begin. I believe that you need to understand your own character. You need to know what your values are, and you need to be true to your values. And a lot of times what that means is applying the golden rule. Some people say, well, I don't know what my values are. I mean, I believe in the generic things like honesty and, you know, playing fair. So if you're in that category where you haven't had time to really think about what are my values, what I recommend is just to think about applying the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. And in doing that, you'll understand what are your values, and being aligned with them establishes the character that is true or unique to yourself. The second C is around competence. Successful leaders are truly competent. They put in the work to really understand their field, to be experts in their field. They may not always have the answers. They may not always have PhDs or master's degrees, right? But it's a melding of their experience and the curiosity that is always going on that makes them competent. You know, when you go to a successful leader, if you have a question or if you ask for advice, that competence is going to shine through. And also competence is around being intellectually honest. So knowing your own limits and being okay with those limits and asking for help, all of that is part of the competence aspect of being a successful leader. The third C is communication. If you've noticed, successful people and successful leaders, they are excellent communicators. And some of them, you know, a lot of people have told me, oh, well, you know, I don't have the right accent or I don't have the right vocabulary. But there are successful leaders that have Southern accents, that have Spanish accents, Portuguese accents. There are successful leaders that don't use the PhD vocabulary, But what they do is when they speak with intention, which means they've thought about their message. They're dialed into the outcome of what they want to communicate. And that intention shines through in the words and in the way that it comes across. And also typically, really successful leaders know how to keep the communication simple. They don't dance around, they don't exaggerate, they just know exactly what to say in the moments when it's needed. And also successful leaders take the time to build their communication messages. They take the time to look someone in the eye, to empathize, and to understand where the message is coming from. The fourth C for a successful leader is credibility. And this is something that gets built with time and with trust. But credibility, in my experience, gets built when you do what you say you're going to do. If you say you're going to follow up, you follow up. If you say you're going to call within an hour, you call within an hour. And that credibility, based on being consistent about what you say and what you do, provides this success foundation. Then the last point is confidence. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. But what I wanted to do is to explain that confidence is really the sum of character plus competence plus communication plus credibility. Confidence doesn't just come out naturally. You're not just born with it. It sort of takes a foundation to make you feel and be believable as a confident leader. Confidence is about believing in yourself and feeling comfortable with who you are and understanding, where do you get your worth from? That's a really important question. Where do you get your worth from? That is foundational to establishing confidence. So later in the presentation, I'll talk a little bit more about this, but I wanted to really give you kind of this, this framework to think about, successful leadership and how confidence really underlies and underpins it. And a really good way to think about it is this wonderful quote from Maya Angelou. She said, "Nothing can dim the light that shines from within." When someone is confident, you can see a light shining from within. And that is, like I said, the sum of so many things. It's values, it's integrity, it's how you present yourself. But when you have that confidence, no one can stop, you from being successful. One thing that is particular to us as Hispanics in general, and I will be a little bit, general about this because everyone has their own experience, but we understand typically where our roots come from. We're ingrained with this idea that family matters, and we're told what our family story is, where we were born, where we came from, how we immigrated or didn't immigrate. And understanding, again, your worth and where you come from is really key to figuring out what is the light that shines inside of you. So definitely challenge you to think about your story. So now that I've laid down the foundation for confidence and why it matters in terms of success, I want to talk about why confidence is such a complicated topic and why not everyone is confident. There are lots of factors that go into play when you answer the question, are you confident or not? So now I'm going to kind of segue a little bit into some stories from the book, The Confidence Code. And I'd like to start off by asking Viv to post a poll on the chat that I'd like you to fill out. So the question is, I want to hear from you. If you're a woman, if you're a man, I want you to score yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. Answer the question, how good are you at scientific reasoning? So scientific reasoning is basically how good are you at answering quantitative questions or math or something like that. Just on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, go ahead and answer that question. The reason I'm asking this question is that many times confidence comes from, the feeling of whether you're smart, and a lot of times this question of math is involved in the feeling of how smart we are. And so I just want to see what the audience polls. And we'll come back to this in a few minutes after Viv collects your answers and understand what the score is. So while you're filling that out and Vivian is compiling the answers, I want to share with you some research that was conducted by David Dunning and Joyce Ehringer from Cornell and the University of Washington. They asked this question to a group of men and women who were about to take a quiz. And the quiz was around scientific reasoning. There were lots of puzzles and math questions. And these researchers were interested in understanding if there is a difference innately between men and women and how confident they are. So before they took the quiz, they asked the question and women responded, and on average they said they scored themselves as a 5.8 and men scored themselves as a 7.6. So clearly we see a difference, a 20% difference, that women feel less confident about scientific reasoning than men do. So then what the researchers did was they gave the men and the women the quiz. And when they took the quiz, it turned out that the results were pretty much equal. Women scored 7.5 and men scored 7.9. And so this is the difference between sometimes how we think about our confidence and actually how competent or capable we are. And there's definitely a difference here. I want to share another piece of research done in the University of Milan that also looked at this question of confidence between men and women. So in this research experiment, the professor didn't ask any questions. He just gave the men and the women a puzzle to figure out on the computer. And again, this was more of a scientific kind of quantitative exercise. And the first time that the group took the quiz, he found that the women scored measurably worse than men. And then as he was digging through the results, he started to realize, wait a second, actually the women didn't answer all of the questions, but the men did. So that sort of caused him to want to probe a little bit deeper. So on day 2, he gave a different quiz of the same level of difficulty. And this time he instructed the quiz takers to complete all of the questions. Even if you think you don't have the answer, just at least give it a good college try and complete the answers. And when the results came back, it turned out that the women and the men did just as well as each other. So again, the scores were pretty much equal. So what does this research indicate to us? It indicates that there's a difference between perception and reality of how we think about our confidence. And that this perception of our confidence often impacts our results. It stops us from actually moving forward, from completing an exercise, or even from taking a risk. Now, the book, The Confidence Code, explores more deeply the difference between women and men and confidence. But for this talk that we're having today, I'm going to extrapolate and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that, you know, this difference between men and women is also a difference, I think, between first-generation immigrants versus people that have been in the country a long time. It's a difference between people who feel like I have a seat at this table versus the people who feel like I'm not sure I have a seat at this table because I may not look like them, I may not talk like them, I may not have the degrees or the pedigree that they have. And so I think that this is really relevant to our community because in our community many times I talk to people who I mentor and they have this crisis of confidence that stops them from being able to do and realize and become the best version of themselves. So I wanted to share these research studies with you to kind of have you contemplate a little bit in your own mind. Have you ever thought less of yourself, that you maybe can't do something? Or have you ever stopped yourself from taking a risk or taking an opportunity because of your confidence level? Basically, you know, I was thinking about this quote from Henry Ford, and he said, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And that to me is what boils down to this level or this concept of confidence, stopping us from being the best that we can be. It is in our head. It's not necessarily in our learning or our confidence. So the book further explores, why is this the case that different people have different levels of confidence? And the book talks about there's 2 reasons for it. We have DNA and we have upbringing. So scientific studies have been conducted, and indeed there are people who are born with genes that allow them to have more confidence than others. About 50% of our confidence comes from our DNA. So for example, if you've been born with more aggressive characteristics or code in your genes, then you're likely to have a little bit more, I feel more confident than the other people. And then the other 50% is really related to our upbringing. So think about if you were brought up in a home where your parents are always pushing you to take risks and it's okay to fail, or if you were born in poverty and you're never taking risks and you're always trying to survive, those things can have a real impact on how confident you are. The good news is that through research and scientific study, we have learned that we can change our outcomes. So it's not like confidence is like the color of your eyes. You can't change the color of your eyes, right? You can't change the fact that your hair is straight. You can't overnight make it curly forever. But when it comes to confidence, you can have the ability to change. So one example is there was a study done with monkeys. The study was, they took monkeys that they knew after studying their genetic code were more aggressive and therefore probably more confident than others. And they took monkeys that weren't, presupposed to be more confident. And they put the monkey into a caring environment. So the monkey had a mom that was very caring and supportive. It turns out the monkeys that were raised in a more caring and supportive environment ended up being even more confident than those monkeys that were born with a confidence.
Others still out there?
Can y'all hear me? Are folks still there?
Yes, I think we lost her.
Okay, we might have lost Lucia. Lucia, can you hear us?
She'll be dialing back in.
Okay,
I'm back. Sorry, guys.
there she is.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Where did I cut off? Oh, after the monkeys were raised. Okay.
Confidence to rebound from bad internet connection.
All right, let me go ahead and share my screen again so you guys can see. So I was talking about the monkeys, and what I was saying is that the monkeys that were less confident when they were raised in a confident, loving environment with a mom that was providing that comfort around them, they actually ended up being more confident than the monkeys that were born more aggressive and therefore could be more confident. So the good news is that upbringing can definitely change your confidence level, and so can thinking around confidence. That can also change. And I'll talk a little bit more later about how you can think about your confidence and change it differently. But now I'd like to check back in with Viv and find out, Viv, did you get the scores from our little informal survey?
I did. So from our female executives, we scored a 7.7, and our male executives scored an 8.8.
Okay, so not a 24% difference like in the original research study, but a little bit of a difference. And, again, that doesn't really mean anything. It means that maybe there is something there that we should always be consistently checking in the way that we're thinking about our own capability. I'd like to open it up now for just a minute, now that we've talked so much about why does confidence matter and where does confidence come from? It comes from DNA, it comes from upbringing and how it impacts our thinking. I just want to hear from the audience verbally, if you can. How do you define confidence? Just want to maybe hear from a couple of people.
They're not afraid to express ourselves.
Not afraid to express ourselves. It's an excellent definition. Anyone else?
I would
They're
say,
willing to take a risk.
Willing to take a risk? Yes.
Lucy, I would say being authentic. When you can bring your whole self, your goofy self, your over the top self, or your shy self and introverted self, when you feel really at home with who you are and show up like that at church, at work, at family, that consistency breeds confidence.
Yes, you know who you are and you're comfortable in your own skin. Absolutely.
I would take that one step forward and say being okay with being vulnerable, knowing your weaknesses, knowing your strengths, and still, in spite of your weaknesses, going after what you want.
Yes, definitely. Again, it goes back to knowing yourself and being comfortable in your own skin. Great. Fantastic. Well, let me share with you some definitions from the book, and I'm just going to read them. The first thing I want to highlight is what confidence is not. In the book, these are all quotes, by the way. Confidence is not a feeling good about yourself, saying you're great, that you're perfect as you are, just like Jason was mentioning, you know, being comfortable, knowing your limits or knowing your weaknesses. So it's not a feeling, people. Confidence occurs when the insidious self-perception that you aren't able is trumped by the stark reality of your achievements. Confidence is linked to doing. Confidence is the stuff that turns thoughts into actions. And confidence is the characteristic that distinguishes those who imagine from those who do. These are wonderful definitions, and the people who piped up, you basically said what's here. Confidence is about action. It's about turning something, an idea, into something concrete. It's about not being afraid to try to take that risk, right? So it's definitely not about, okay, confidence is I just have to change the tone of my voice, or wear something that makes me look taller or smarter, wear the glasses so that they believe me. That kind of idea of faking it, that does not help you. What helps you is digging into that deep psychological understanding of who you are and what your worth is. And if you take if you take a step back and you think about the people that you admire the most in your life that are successful leaders or successful friends, you'll notice that they all dress differently. They all have different accents. They have different communication styles, different ways of dressing. But probably the one thing that you notice is that they're good with that. They're good with how they come across. And that feeling of comfort is what projects that confidence, because of the actions that they take are consistent with the person that they are. So moving on then to the next slide here, I can and I will, I think is a really great way to summarize confidence. It's knowing that I can and then doing it, willing it into action. To be successful then, the book goes on to say, it's more than being competent. And I do want to take a minute here to talk about this, because I think that many of us fall into this competency trap, which is, if I work 14 hours a day and I read all of the articles and finish all of my emails, I'm going to be successful and I'm going to be confident. It is true that we need to work hard, absolutely. And it is true that we should put in the hours that are required, but that is not what's going to give us the full confidence that we need. In the Confidence Code, there is a story about a woman named Vanessa, and she's a successful fundraiser for a nonprofit. She raised the most funds across all of her peers, and she's going in to her performance review. And she's fully expecting, I'm going to get promoted because my results that I drove, they were the best. And I worked the hardest from everyone in this nonprofit organization. And what she heard was, in fact, that she wasn't going to get promoted. And her manager said, if you want to be promoted as a senior leader in this organization, you need to start making decisions. It doesn't matter that you're right all the time. You need to make decisions for your team, with your team, and stick with it. Vanessa was working really hard, but she wasn't taking the risks, making the decisions. And so she wasn't seen as a confident leader. She was seen as a worker bee. And that is not what makes a successful leader. The other piece too is that in order to be successful with this foundation of confidence is that it's more than feeling confident. I've kind of already talked about that. It's not enough to psych yourself up and to do the victory pose before a presentation, be like, all right, I'm the best. It's not about that. You actually have to put in the real hard work to understand your values, your worth, your achievements. You know, it is the real work behind that that is important. Gaining confidence means getting outside of your comfort zone and experiencing setbacks with determination, picking yourself up again. When you fail and you succeed and you know you can overcome, that's when you are confident. And then finally, one last point is about watching out for when you build dependence on praise. And this is really important. I know from my own experience, when I was younger, I was looking for that praise, you know, make sure my dad's happy with me, make sure that my boss is giving me the great reviews, that my business partners are speaking well of me. And I was kind of building my success off of what I was hearing others were saying about me. And of course, everyone wants to have raving reviews from their business partners. That's great. But there is a moment in your career where you're going to have to be okay when people are not speaking positively about you. Either because you've gotten up to a level in the organization where, you're in a club now that is not getting feedback all the time, or because you had to make a really tough decision that in the short term was going to upset a lot of people, but in the long term, is the best thing to do. So that confidence needs to be there, whether or not you're hearing that praise and that positive feedback from other people. And so that's a big watch out for us as leaders, is to make sure that we're not, building a foundation of praise, a third party, subjective feedback, or the polls that you're hearing every day. It's not usually a genuine lack of competence that holds us back from making choices. It's that hurdle about the perception of how others are thinking. That's a quote from the book as well. So let's move on now that we've talked about, what that confidence is, what does it look like. I'm just going to finish up here and leave some time for discussion. But I want to, give you some tips from the book. The book talks about confidence boosting habits, and I want to walk through this list here really quickly. Number one, habit is that when you're in doubt, you should act. Analysis paralysis will not give you confidence. Yes, you should think thoroughly about the decisions that you're making. But when you're in doubt, like say your manager calls you and says, hey, Viv, I want you to take on this extra assignment. I know you have a lot on your plates. Do you mind, picking this up? If Viv is doubting whether she can do it, maybe what she needs to do is just act. Okay, I'm going to accept that assignment. I'm confident I'm going to be able to figure out a way to do that, whether it's me doing it or whether it's me asking for help to get it done. But when you're in doubt, just act and then deal with the consequences of that. Number two is killing gnats. Gnats are negative automatic thoughts, also known as your inner critic. Some of us have stronger inner critics than others. But gnats are, you wake up in the morning and that little voice in your head says, why did you sleep that extra half hour? You should have worked out. Now you didn't work out. You're not going to have time to work out. Or you finish a presentation and that little voice in your head says, I really should have done it differently. I should have included this, or I should have included that. Those negative automatic thoughts are there for a reason. Sometimes they help you be a better person, but sometimes they steal your confidence as well. And so you need to temper them and notice when they're happening and reframe them. A really great tool that I was taught early on was when those negative automatic thoughts come up, what you should tell yourself is, if I was a friend hearing this, what would I tell my friend? Would I tell my friend, yeah, that negative action or negative thought is correct? Or would I tell my friend, you know what, that's annoying, just shut that off. So think about that as those thoughts come up. Number three, accepting feedback is really key to establishing confidence. Feedback from other people is important, especially I would say from your spouses and your children. They're the ones who are going to tell you the real truth. They're going to be real with you. And when they give you feedback, you should try not to take it personally. I know it's hard sometimes to hear the truth, but getting this feedback will give you more confidence because why? You're learning from your mistakes. You're learning from what those who love you the most are telling you. And so all you can do is accept that as a gift and act on it. Number four, learn how to take a compliment. There is nothing worse from your confidence than somebody giving you a compliment and you tear the compliment down yourself. Hey, Susanna, you did a great job at the conference yesterday. You hit it out of the park. And Susanna says, oh, well, actually, I didn't think it went that well. I've done better conferences in the past and I wish I could have done better. Why did you just do that? Just say thank you. If someone praises you for something, gives you a compliment, say thank you. That's what a confident person does. Because a confident person knows that their worth doesn't come from that compliment. Their worth comes from a bunch of other things. And you're just accepting that someone is giving you a positive vibe.
Lucia, that's so funny that you mentioned that because that's actually my New Year's resolution, or one of them, is this year to always just say, oh, thank you. Oh, I'm glad you liked it. Instead of saying, it was nothing. So that is so funny that you chose me to use that example because that's exactly something that I'm working on. So thank you.
Good spirits. And look, I will admit, just last week, I was on a call with my boss and I work a lot with our portfolio companies in Peru and in Brazil. And so I work with them in Portuguese and Spanish. My manager said, I just really want to thank you. It sounds like you're doing an amazing job, working with them. And what did I say? I said, oh, well, it's probably because before they didn't have anyone that could speak the language and I can speak the language. So they're probably just thankful for that. And I thought, why did I just say that? Why didn't I just say thank you? So it's like you're constantly battling this little voice in your head, but it does, over the long run, have a silly impact on how you're coming across and how confident you are. Number 5, speak up. I think this is a piece of advice that I've gotten very early on. I had a high school teacher, her name was Mrs. Riggs, and she was amazing. She was the English teacher, and she recognized that some kids would speak up and some wouldn't. So what did she do? 10% of our grade was based on the amount of times that we raised our hands and actually contributed to asking a question or answering a question in class. And this killed me when I was in high school because I was the kind of student who was very, I got all of the information in, and if I didn't understand something, I was a little bit embarrassed because I thought everybody knew more than I did. And so I would go after class and I'd ask for help, right? So now in Mrs. Riggs' class, I had to raise my hand and I had to come up with something intelligent to say. And I will tell you that sometimes I apply Mrs. Riggs' rule when I go to meetings and where I feel like maybe I'm not up to snuff. And I make sure that I come up with an intelligent thing to say. I'm not just talking to talk, but that you speak up. You have a seat at the table, speak up, make sure that you're heard and that your presence is noticed. We already talked about number 6, praise progress, not confidence. This is something that I think as a parent, I have learned to do, which is if you're telling your kids or your employees or your mentees, great job, so proud of how smart you are, you're just amazing, that feedback is not really great. It's not actionable because kids will grow up thinking that you just think they're smart and maybe they think that they're not. So what you should be praising is progress. I really see the amazing transformation you did from this drawing to this drawing. Look at how you've grown. Look at how you've learned. Wow, look at, you got a B+ last time and now you got an A. That's great work. So praise the progress in other people and in yourself. That will also help to establish a better level of confidence. And finally, the book talks about repeat, repeat, repeat. This is just like building a muscle. You see the image here is small steps every day. When COVID began, I could not do a push-up and I had this goal to be able to do a push-up, and my muscles have been built and now I can do several push-ups consecutively. Thank you, G, for your inspiration on Facebook doing your push-ups every day. Well, confidence is the same way. Killing gnats is the same way. Speaking up is the same way. These muscles are not physical, but they are emotional, they are psychological, and they are important muscles for you to work on to become a successful leader. So what are you going to do after this webinar? I hope that this has caused you to think about confidence in yourself, how you think about your confidence, how you act. Maybe your upbringing and your DNA had something to do with that, but what are the things that you could be doing to change and give yourself that level of confidence? So I have an action plan for those people who are like me and want to have a checklist after a webinar. The action plan is to do this. I think the first step is to reflect on who you are, what drives you, what makes you, where you get your worth from. Define what your character is. And the second step is to define your values. And maybe you think about a couple of stories in your life that makes you who you are, that you're proud of those stories. And also, step 3 is to empower yourself. Let your style color your confidence. Don't be afraid of your accent and how you look like or what you dress like. Just own yourself. Decide who you want to be and be comfortable in your own skin. So be authentic. And finally, ask for a challenge and take a risk. Think about in your personal life or in your professional life, where should you be acting a little bit more to be able to get that foundation of confidence in your life. All right, guys, my last slide is basically, I sum up this entire book for you in 2 bullet points here. Confidence is not necessarily innate, but like skills, it can be learned and built. So even if you're not confident today, you can be. And the second bullet point is that the best way to build confidence is to try, to make mistakes, to learn from them, and to try again. It's a continuous work in progress. And the book ends with this wonderful call to action, which is take action and be authentic. And that is the way that you can be a successful leader with that confidence foundation inside of you. So if you want to, I have here a snapshot of the book. I definitely recommend you reading it. It is very focused on the difference between women and men in confidence. But as you saw from today's discussion, all of those lessons can be extrapolated, whether you are a woman or a man, and definitely can be used for yourself, for you as a parent, and you as a professional in your own lives. So hope you have fun reading the book. And if you do read the book, and if you have any additional thoughts to share with me, I would love to hear from you and have a discussion on the topic. So with that, I want to thank you so much for listening to me, but I would love to hear any additional thoughts, questions, commentary. We have some time for dialogue, so would love to hear from you.
Hi, Lucia, it's Jason Rueda again. And one, thank you for the presentation. I thought it was excellent. I have one question, one comment. So my question for you is actually, I put it on the chat as well, which is when you're such a senior level, at such a senior level, how do you know if you're on the right track or driving towards the goals and direction that your C-suite, CEO, and what have you have laid out for the company if you're not getting that feedback?
That's a great question. I feel like at the C-suite, feedback is so different. Feedback is you hanging out with your C-suite buddies over a drink and having a discussion that's very informal. Because when we're getting promoted through the organization, we can take advantage of tools like 360 feedback, or their coaches, right? Or your business partners are mentoring you. But when you get to the C-suite, it's a whole different experience. It's more like you're in this group of friends in the same boat, rowing together, and you need to be constantly talking to each other about feedback and about performance and what you can be doing better. And it requires trust, and it requires vulnerability in a completely different level. And I think that is why you need to have a really strong foundation of confidence before you get into that C-suite level, so that that can shine forth, and that you can be your true self in understanding how you get that feedback. So I think the dynamics are just so different, but the basics are there. Okay. Does that make sense? Very much so.
The other thing I actually comment that I was going to make was I am notorious for never asking for help for anything. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible thing. And I have worked very, very hard to fix that. In fact, I've started leveraging my network. Some of the people in this chat, I've been able to leverage to accomplish a couple of things. And the difference that it's making in my life is literally life-changing, just by having the confidence to ask for some help. So it's been pretty amazing for me.
What a great tip. I'm so glad that you raised that, Jason. I think that a lot of us, feel like, it's not like we feel we have to have all the answers, but I personally feel like I only ask for help when I really absolutely need it. And yet others around me are constantly asking for help. And it's actually, if you think about agile software development and the method behind agile teams, it is about constantly helping each other out. So yeah, I think that's a wonderful point that you brought up. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a comment. I actually began business school this Monday. I'm very excited. One of the core tenets or values on the school is called confidence without attitude, and that's actually a phrase that really resonates with me, because the way I see it is, when I deconstruct it, you put confidence as denoting knowledge. And that could be knowledge by training, or that could be knowledge by experience. Then attitude denotes, confidence without attitude, where attitude denotes wisdom. And that could be wisdom by culture, or wisdom, again, by experience. So I like this combination of words, because in many ways one controls the other. Because I feel that it's always good to have attitude. It's always good to have like a sense of purpose when we're going towards things. But at the same time, it's good to have that piece to modulate that confidence and to remind you that it might be, there might be things not being considered. There might be always an angle that needs to be taken into account. And I want to say that without saying that we need to not be confident about things, but it's always good to have that little counterweight to the notion. Just a comment there.
It's a great comment. No one likes the arrogant, confident person, right? It is about style. I've seen it so much in Silicon Valley, and I think what you end up seeing is that those people who have that arrogant confidence or that attitude, it's actually because they're not confident, you know, and eventually it just backfires on them. But you're right. I think it's something really unique to style, and going back to, again, where do you get your worth from? Very good point. So I have a question for the audience really quickly. I'm just curious, you know, had you thought about this topic, confidence, before? And has it been something that you've been thinking about in your leadership journey, or is this really the first time that you've had time to think about it?
Hi, this is Chris Dominich. I'm one of the EEP fellows this year from Lockheed Martin, and been talking about this a lot with my mentor, Monica Hernandez, who's the founder and CEO of Mouse Global. And just in how I portray myself and being confident in how I speak, and just some of the characteristics you brought up of successful leaders, character, integrity, even in those areas. She gave me a book called, which I have right here, Legacy Leader by Anthony Lopez. Excellent book. And he talks about the importance of character and integrity. And you can see if you don't have character, if you're cutting corners, if you're not being honest in your dealings and in things of that nature, you're not going to have confidence either, because you're, you know, afraid you're going to be found out, perhaps as a, you know, as a fraud, or not, you know, really haven't achieved what you've gotten honestly. But if you're doing things the right way, if you have character, you have integrity, and the other items you had listed there, like you said, it's confidence not in an emotion, but in what you've done, in your achievements. You know, and I think that's just something powerful to hold on to, even in myself, and looking back in my past of what I've accomplished. And I do deserve the seat at the table, so to speak. I'm at the table, so I got there for a reason, and remember how I got there and what I did, and achievements and so forth. So appreciated that.
Thanks for sharing that. I'll look up that book. And I think that the whole thing about the faking it, I've always had kind of a difficult relationship with it. Just fake it till you make it comment. And it's because I really think that when people believe that they're faking it, it's not authentic, right? But I think the idea behind faking it till you make it is actually take a risk and know that you're going to learn how to figure it out. And actually, that's what this book is about, is just basically saying, be confident that when you get something thrown onto your plate, you will figure it out. And if you don't figure it out completely, you learn from it and you'll figure it out after that. So I think that that's really key. That's awesome, Chris. Glad to hear you're getting a good mentor there.
I would say this is Chris Kyprios too. Excuse me. I think one of the things that I've learned over time and come to accept is confidence is a journey as well. And you may start to show it, and then things may kind of bring you back down. You just have to continue to kind of reinforce and believe in it. And as you said, kind of take action upon it. And just because something happens that may detract from your confidence level, if you will, that doesn't mean that you lack confidence, but it's a continuous improvement opportunity. And you can't just say, I'm now confident, and then kind of just think you can take that forward and not continue to put effort into being confident.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful point.
And Lucia, I have a unique experience. I think I born with confidence, and my family always empowered that.
One of those guys.
But listen that when I moved to US 14 years ago, I moved to get my MBA, and my English wasn't that good. I had that experience to don't have any confidence. I was the person, like you said, on the classroom, quiet, not speaking up. And when I joined the workforce, I have that challenge as well because my English wasn't on the level to have all the discussions on that, how fast and the speed. And it was hard on me, really. I even challenged myself, I'm on the right place. Should I go back to Brazil? I'm moving forward with my dream. And as I keep starting on getting my confidence back, took some time, but I got it. And at the moment I got it, I was able to grow back on my career. But with me was this situation I had and suddenly I lost completely. It was hard.
Thanks for sharing that. I have kind of the reverse, which is when I started working with, I mentioned our portfolio companies in Brazil and Peru. I know how to speak the languages. I mean, I majored, I wrote papers, 20-page papers in Spanish and Portuguese, right? So why shouldn't I be able to work with these companies? But the language terms that are used, all the business speak, how do you talk about technology in those languages? I went into a meeting and I froze. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to say any of these things. So I can relate to that. And it made me appreciate a lot more people who are not native English speakers, and they come here to this country to try to do business and make it happen. How much more energy you need to have and courage to stick with it to be successful. So it's a great story, but again, it goes back to, taking action and learning from it.
Yes.
And like you did, you learned pretty quickly, and we all can, just we need to make sure that confidence or lack of confidence doesn't freeze us in our steps.
Lucia, this is Selena. I want to say thank you for a great presentation. It was awesome. And I particularly liked the study that you talked about with the monkeys, because I have 3 children, and it seems like there's no way that all 3 of them could have come from me, because they're all so different. And maybe someone else on the call may have that experience. And so it's interesting to me that now I realize what a big impact that I can have on the disparity in confidence that is among the 3, how that it doesn't have to be that they were just born that way, that with confidence in the upbringing that you can make a difference. That was very positive, and thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Teaching kids, it's like life's biggest challenge and life's biggest pleasure. But I did notice actually in my own kids, I have 2 girls, and I'll ask them, oh, how'd you think you did on that math test? And I'll share the story because it's how I was when I was a kid. Oh, I think I did horrible. I did terrible on it. Next day they come home, they both ace their math tests. Why did they think this way, right? So it is definitely there, whether we like it or not, with girls and boys sometimes. And it's about really fostering that idea in them that, you face things with courage and you progress and make progress. And that's where you build your confidence, is knowing that you can learn more. So I took a lot of good heart about having my own little monkeys and teaching them.
I think challenges make you transform how you deal with many things. I'll just share a little funny COVID story. So, we're all kind of not able to go out because of restrictions, whatever. My wife comes in one day, you need a haircut. I'm giving you a haircut right now. So I had to have the confidence to say, okay, honey, I'll let you give me my haircut. And she had that confidence to do it, right? And she did it, and it was okay, and we moved on, and nothing happened. And I think we're facing our businesses and our jobs and family situations all the time with challenges that we might not be so sure. We've never done that before, right? I always go to the barbershop, whatever. But sometimes you just have to take life's challenges, whatever they are, your job's challenges, and decide that you're going to act and make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good example of COVID. We're facing challenges we never thought we would have to face. Absolutely.
I've been prepared for COVID since the very beginning.
No, Benny, I got the same offer from my wife.
Some of us are born better than others for this global pandemic.
No drag, fully prepared. Let's do this.
I had the confidence to tell my wife no, I wasn't going to let her do it.
All right. Well, thanks all for your engagement. It's so great always to hear from you. You're all such smart people. It's a pleasure to engage in the discussion. I'll turn it back over to Viviana if you want to wrap things up.
Thank you, Lucia. This was an amazing session. I hope everybody got as much out of it as I did. The 5 C's, so much. I did so much. I was like taking pictures of everything. I know we have the recording, but I was like so excited about everything that was coming through. So really thank you for sharing that insight, because as we talked at the beginning, you know, I really appreciate these spaces where we can just take a pause and think about, reflect on our own experiences and how we're thinking about this and applying it to our own lives and our own journeys. And so really grateful to all of you for taking time to be with us today. I have a couple of announcements before we close out. This is our last HITEC Live session. We're going to take a quick break as we prepare for the summit, as Omar mentioned at the top of the hour. So we'll be back August 24th, I want to say, that week. So we'll be back. Next week, though, we will be having, we're going to be celebrating our HITEC 50 awardees. So if you'd like to participate, it is a virtual black tie celebration. We're going to celebrate and toast and hear from some fantastic speakers. And so if you'd like to join us, please feel free. We'd love to have you. That's on Wednesday, July 29th from 5 to 6 Eastern. And lastly, we want to take this opportunity to survey all of you to get your feedback on what your thoughts have been on our past HITEC Live sessions. We're always evolving. We want to do better. We want to do better for all of you. So would love to hear from you, and please be on the lookout for those surveys. So with that, have a happy Friday. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll be seeing you either on Wednesday for HITEC 50 or during the summit. So thanks for being here. We appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lucia. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Gracias, Lucia. We appreciate you. Mil gracias.
Gracias. Adios.
Bye.
Thank you.
Ciao, familia.
Ciao.
Ciao. Thank you, Selena. You saved me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Bye.
That's what I always say.
Take care, ladies. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao. I'm so happy I got to meet her husband. I feel like I met a celebrity.
That's great.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Ciao.